The passing of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, on June 8, 632 CE, was a moment of profound sorrow and shock for the Muslim community. For over 2 decades, he had led them with wisdom, justice, and divine guidance, transforming scattered tribes into a united ummah bound by faith. Though his final illness had been apparent, many of his followers held on to hope, unable to accept the thought of losing the man they saw as their connection to God's will on earth. When the moment of his passing arrived, grief swept through Medina, leaving the city in a state of disbelief and sorrow. His closest companions, those who had fought alongside him, learned from him, and dedicated their lives to his mission, found themselves overwhelmed with emotion. Some, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, struggled to accept the reality, refusing to believe that the messenger of God had left them. Amid the mourning, an urgent question arose: what would happen to the Muslim community now? The unity of the Ummah had been centered around the leadership of the Prophet, and with him gone, uncertainty loomed over Medina. Who would lead them? How would Islam continue to thrive without its messenger? There was no clear successor, no formal instruction left by the Prophet regarding leadership, and the weight of this uncertainty threatened to divide the community. In the hours that followed, the companions of the Prophet had to make a critical decision that would determine the future of Islam. Their choice would set the foundation for the leadership of the Muslim world, shaping not only the immediate response to his passing, but also the course of Islamic history for centuries to come. What followed was a period of both unity and division, trials and triumphs, as Islam transitioned into a new era. The death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, left the Muslim community in a state of mourning, but grief quickly gave way to a more urgent concern: the question of leadership. For over 2 decades, the Prophet had been the undisputed guide of the Ummah, not just as a messenger of God, but also as a political and military leader. With no clear successor named, uncertainty threatened to unravel the unity he had so carefully built. The emotions in Medina ran high, and in the immediate aftermath, Umar ibn al-Khattab, overcome with sorrow, refused to accept the reality of the Prophet's death. He stood in the mosque, declaring that Muhammad had not died, that he had only gone to meet his Lord as Moses had before him, and that he would return. It was only when Abu Bakr, the Prophet's closest companion and father-in-law, addressed the people that the weight of the moment truly sank in. He recited a verse from the Quran: "Muhammad is but a messenger. Other messengers have passed before him. If he dies or is killed, will you then turn back on your heels?" These words brought clarity, and Medina slowly began to accept the painful truth. With the Prophet gone, the leadership of the Ummah had to be decided swiftly. The Ansar, the Medinan Muslims who had welcomed and protected the Prophet and his followers, gathered at Saqifa, a roofed hall belonging to the Banu Sa'idah tribe. They believed that leadership should remain among them, given their pivotal role in establishing the Islamic State. However, the Muhajirun, the early Muslims who had migrated from Mecca, saw it differently. They argued that since the Prophet came from the Quraysh tribe, the broader Arab community would only accept a leader from the same lineage. The debate was tense, and there was a risk that the Ummah could fragment along tribal lines. In the midst of these discussions, Abu Bakr and Umar arrived at Saqifa to engage in the debate. Recognizing the need for unity, Abu Bakr delivered a speech emphasizing that leadership should go to the Quraysh, not as a matter of privilege, but as a means to maintain cohesion among the tribes. He acknowledged the contributions of the Ansar, but urged them to prioritize the greater good of the Ummah. As a solution, he put forward 2 names, Umar ibn al-Khattab and Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, as suitable leaders. Before anyone else could react, Umar, realizing Abu Bakr's seniority and deep connection with the Prophet, immediately took his hand and pledged allegiance to him. Others followed, and a consensus emerged around Abu Bakr as the first caliph of Islam. not everyone immediately accepted this decision. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, did not pledge allegiance right away, as some believed leadership should remain within the Prophet's family. However, Ali ultimately accepted Abu Bakr's rule, choosing unity over division. With this, the first caliphate was established, setting the course for Islamic governance after the Prophet's passing. After assuming leadership, Abu Bakr faced immediate challenges that threatened the unity and survival of the young Muslim state. The Prophet Muhammad's passing had left a void not only in leadership but also in the loyalty of various tribes across the Arabian Peninsula. While many had accepted Islam during the Prophet's lifetime, their allegiance had often been tied directly to him rather than to the broader Muslim community. With his death, some tribes saw an opportunity to break away, no longer feeling bound by their previous commitments. Others claimed that their pledge had been to Muhammad alone and refused to continue obligations, such as paying zakat, the mandatory almsgiving that was essential to the Islamic economic system. This refusal was not just a financial issue, it was a direct challenge to the authority of the newly established caliphate. If some tribes could selectively abandon certain aspects of Islam, it would set a dangerous precedent that could lead to the complete fragmentation of the Ummah. Compounding these defections was the rise of several false prophets, individuals who claimed divine revelation and sought to rival Muhammad's legacy. The most significant of these was Musaylima, known as Musaylima the Liar, who had built a substantial following in Central Arabia. During the Prophet's lifetime, Musaylima had sent a letter to Muhammad declaring himself a co-prophet, a claim that had been outright rejected. However, after the Prophet's death, Musaylima's influence grew and his followers formed a strong military force. Other self-proclaimed prophets, including Tulayha al-Asadi and Saja, also gained traction, creating a serious threat to the stability of the Islamic State. Abu Bakr responded decisively. He made it clear that Islam was not merely a personal faith, but a complete system that required obedience to its laws, including zakat. His refusal to compromise, even when some of his closest advisors suggested a more lenient approach, demonstrated his firm commitment to preserving the integrity of Islam. He declared that if anyone withheld zakat, he would fight them as if they had abandoned prayer itself. With this resolve, he launched a series of military campaigns known as the Ridda Wars, or the Wars of Apostasy, to restore order. The first priority was securing Medina, as some rebellious tribes considered attacking the city. Despite having fewer resources than the Prophet had during his lifetime, Abu Bakr swiftly organized his forces and repelled these initial threats. He then sent Khalid ibn al-Walid, one of the greatest military commanders of the time, to subdue the rebellions. One of the earliest and most significant battles was against Tulayha al-Asadi, whose forces were defeated, leading him to flee and later repent. However, the greatest challenge remained Musaylima and his formidable army. The decisive Battle of Yamama was one of the bloodiest conflicts in early Islamic history, with thousands of casualties, including many of the Prophet's companions. Despite heavy losses, Khalid's forces emerged victorious, and Musaylima was killed in combat, effectively ending his rebellion. By the end of the Ridda Wars, Abu Bakr had successfully re-established control over the Arabian Peninsula. His leadership ensured that Islam would continue as a unified faith, not just during the life of the Prophet, but for generations to come. His firmness in the face of rebellion reinforced the caliphate's authority, allowing Islam to transition from a fragile state to an enduring global force. The Ridda Wars had come at a great cost to the Muslim community, not only in terms of military losses, but also in the number of devout companions who had died in battle. Among them were many of the Hafiz, individuals who had memorized the Quran in its entirety. At the time, the Quran was primarily preserved through oral transmission, with verses also recorded on various materials such as parchment, bone, and palm leaves. As the number of Hafiz declined, a growing concern emerged about the potential loss of portions of the Quran. If too many of these reciters perished, there was a real risk that the divine revelations could be forgotten or distorted. Umar ibn al-Khattab recognized the urgency of the situation and approached Abu Bakr with a bold proposal to compile the Quran into a single written manuscript. At first, Abu Bakr hesitated, fearing that initiating such a task might be an innovation, as the Prophet himself had never ordered the Quran to be compiled in book form. However, as Umar continued to emphasize the risk of losing portions of the Quran, Abu Bakr saw the wisdom in his suggestion and agreed. To ensure absolute accuracy, Abu Bakr entrusted this monumental task to Zayd ibn Thabit, a young but highly respected companion of the Prophet who had served as one of his scribes. Zayd himself was initially hesitant, acknowledging the immense responsibility of gathering and verifying every verse. He meticulously collected written fragments and cross-checked them with the oral recitations of the surviving Hafiz, ensuring that no verse was included unless confirmed by multiple sources. The completed manuscript was then entrusted to Abu Bakr and later safeguarded by Umar and his daughter Hafsa, preserving the Quran in its authentic form for future generations. After the passing of Abu Bakr in 634 CE, the responsibility of leading the Muslim Ummah fell to Umar ibn al-Khattab. Before his death, Abu Bakr had nominated Umar as his successor, recognizing his strength, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to justice. Though some feared that Umar's temperament might make his rule harsh, he quickly proved to be a leader of immense vision, discipline, and fairness. His rule would mark a period of great expansion, administrative reforms, and the transformation of Islam into a global power. Under Umar's leadership, the Islamic State grew rapidly, reaching beyond the Arabian Peninsula and into the heart of the two greatest empires of the time, the Byzantine and Persian empires. The first major victory came against the Byzantine forces in Syria, culminating in the conquest of Damascus in 635 CE. The Muslim forces, led by the brilliant general Khalid ibn al-Walid, continued pushing forward, and in 636 CE, they secured a decisive victory at the Battle of Yarmouk, effectively breaking Byzantine control over the region. The city of Jerusalem, a place of immense religious significance, fell to the Muslims in 637 CE. Unlike previous conquerors, Umar entered the city humbly, refusing grand ceremonies, and personally signed the Covenant of Umar, guaranteeing religious freedom for Christians and Jews. While the Byzantines struggled to defend their territories, the Persian Sassanid Empire faced an even greater blow. At the Battle of Qadisiyah in 636 CE, the Muslims, despite being outnumbered, defeated the mighty Persian forces. The Persian capital, Ctesiphon, fell shortly after, leading to the collapse of one of the most powerful civilizations of the time. Within a few years, much of Persia was under Muslim rule, marking one of the most rapid and significant expansions in history. Beyond military conquests, Umar focused on governance and administration. He introduced a structured system of governance, dividing the empire into provinces and appointing governors who were expected to rule with justice. Unlike other empires that plundered newly conquered lands, Umar ensured that the rights of the local populations were respected. His strict policies against corruption meant that governors were held accountable, and any abuse of power was swiftly dealt with. He also implemented a system of stipends for the poor, widows, and the elderly, ensuring that the wealth of the expanding empire benefited its people. One of his most enduring contributions was the establishment of the Islamic calendar, which began with the year of the Hijrah, the Prophet Muhammad's migration from Mecca to Medina. This calendar provided a unified timeline for governance, trade, and religious observance, and it remains in use across the Muslim world today. Despite his many successes, Umar's leadership came to a tragic end in 644 CE when he was assassinated by a Persian slave while leading the dawn prayer in Medina. His death marked the end of a transformative era, but his legacy endured, shaping the Islamic world for generations to come. He had not only expanded the Muslim empire, but also established a model of governance that emphasized justice, accountability, and service to the people. Following the assassination of Umar ibn al-Khattab in 644 CE, the Muslim community once again faced the challenge of selecting a new leader. A council was formed to deliberate, and after careful discussion, Uthman ibn Affan was chosen as the third caliph. Known for his generosity, humility, and devotion to Islam, Uthman came from the powerful Umayyad clan of the Quraysh. His leadership oversaw the continued expansion of the Islamic Empire, stretching into North Africa, Central Asia, and beyond. Under his rule, Muslim armies pushed further into Byzantine territory and strengthened control over Persia, securing Islam's place as a dominant global power. As the empire grew, a critical issue emerged regarding the preservation of the Quran. With Islam spreading to non-Arabic speaking regions, differences in Quranic recitation became apparent. Variations in pronunciation and dialect led to concerns that the integrity of the text could become compromised over time. Alarmed by this, the respected military commander Hudhaifa ibn al-Yaman urged Uthman to take action. Recognizing the urgency, Uthman commissioned Zayd ibn Thabit, the same companion who had compiled the Quran under Abu Bakr, to create an official, standardized version. Multiple copies were produced and sent to key Islamic cities, while all other personal variations were ordered to be destroyed to prevent confusion. Despite this major achievement, Uthman's rule became increasingly controversial. Accusations of nepotism arose as he appointed several of his Umayyad relatives to prominent positions, leading to growing resentment among the Muslim community. Discontent escalated into open rebellion, and in 656 CE, Uthman was besieged in his home by protesters demanding his resignation. He refused to step down and was ultimately assassinated, marking a turning point in Islamic history that would lead to deep political divisions. After the assassination of Uthman ibn Affan in 656 CE, the Muslim world was thrown into turmoil. The once unified Ummah was now deeply divided, and the question of leadership became more contentious than ever. In the midst of this crisis, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, was urged by many to take on the role of caliph. Reluctant at first, knowing that his rule would be contested, Ali eventually accepted the position, believing it was his duty to restore order. However, his caliphate was immediately met with opposition from powerful figures who demanded justice for Uthman's murder before acknowledging Ali's leadership. Among those who challenged Ali's rule were Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, along with two prominent companions, Talha and Zubair. They accused Ali of failing to punish Uthman's assassins and called for immediate action. Their opposition led to armed conflict, culminating in the Battle of the Camel, named after the camel that Aisha rode into battle. The clash resulted in heavy casualties, and though Ali emerged victorious, the confrontation deepened the fractures within the Muslim community. Aisha was treated with dignity and sent back to Medina, but the damage to unity had already been done. Ali's greatest challenge came from Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the powerful governor of Syria and a relative of Uthman, who refused to pledge allegiance until Uthman's killers were brought to justice. This dispute led to the Battle of Siffin in 657 CE, a prolonged and bloody conflict. As neither side achieved a decisive victory, the matter was referred to arbitration. a decision that angered some of Ali's supporters. A faction known as the Kharijitis broke away, viewing Ali's willingness to negotiate as a betrayal of divine justice. Ali was forced to fight the Kharijitis at the Battle of Nahrawan, crushing their rebellion, but their ideology remained a lingering threat. His leadership continued to weaken as Muawiyah's influence grew, and many of Ali's allies abandoned him. In 661 CE, while leading prayers in Kufa, Ali was assassinated by a Kharijiti extremist, marking the tragic end of his rule. His death left the Muslim world more divided than ever, and his supporters would later form the foundation of the Shia sect, believing that leadership rightfully belonged to his descendants. With the assassination of Ali ibn Abi Talib in 661 CE, the Muslim world stood at a turning point. Leadership of the Ummah was now fiercely contested, and the unity that had once defined Islam was fractured. Ali's son, Hassan, briefly assumed leadership, but recognizing the overwhelming strength of his opposition, chose to abdicate in favor of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan to prevent further bloodshed. Muawiyah, already a powerful governor, seized the opportunity to consolidate his rule, marking the beginning of the Umayyad dynasty and shifting the Islamic Caliphate from an elective system to hereditary rule. Under the Umayyads, the Islamic Empire expanded rapidly, stretching across North Africa, Spain, and into Central Asia. However, their rule was not without controversy. Unlike the previous caliphs, who had been chosen by consultation among the Prophet's companions, the Umayyads established a monarchy, favoring their own family for key positions of power. This shift alienated many Muslims who felt that leadership should be based on merit rather than lineage. Their governance often prioritized political stability and military expansion over religious inclusivity, leading to resentment among various groups. One of the most significant consequences of this period was the solidification of the Sunni-Shia divide. Those who supported Muawiyah and the legitimacy of his rule became known as Sunnis, while those who believed that leadership should remain within the Prophet's family, particularly through Ali's descendants, became the Shia. The divide deepened in 680 CE when Ali's son, Hussein, led a small band of supporters against the Umayyad ruler Yazid at the Battle of Karbala. Outnumbered and ultimately killed, Hussein's martyrdom became a defining event for Shia Islam, symbolizing resistance against oppression. This event cemented the sectarian split that continues to influence the Muslim world today. The passing of Prophet Muhammad marked the beginning of one of the most transformative periods in Islamic history. What followed was not just a transition of leadership, but the shaping of an empire that would grow far beyond the Arabian Peninsula. The four caliphs who succeeded him, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, each played a crucial role in guiding the Muslim community through unprecedented challenges, ensuring that Islam did not fade with the Prophet's departure, but instead flourished into a global force. Their leadership was defined by military conquests, administrative reforms, and internal struggles, all of which shaped the foundations of the Islamic civilization. The unity of the Muslim Ummah was tested almost immediately after the Prophet's death. Abu Bakr's swift action in dealing with apostasy and false prophets ensured that Islam remained a cohesive faith rather than a fragmented collection of tribal allegiances. His compilation of the Quran safeguarded the divine revelation for future generations. Umar's leadership expanded the Islamic Empire into Persia and Byzantium, establishing a structured and just system of governance. Uthman's standardization of the Quran ensured uniformity in religious practice, though his later years saw growing discontent that led to his assassination. Ali's caliphate was marked by civil war and division, culminating in his tragic assassination, which left the Ummah more fractured than ever before. With the rise of the Umayyad dynasty, the transition from an elected caliphate to a hereditary monarchy altered the nature of Islamic leadership. While the empire expanded further than ever, political tensions and sectarian divisions deepened. The split between Sunni and Shia Muslims, rooted in the conflicts over succession, shaped the religious and political landscape of the Muslim world for centuries. The martyrdom of Hussein at Karbala became a pivotal event in Shia identity, while the Umayyads continued to rule with military strength and political strategy. Despite the conflicts and struggles of this period, the legacy of the early caliphs endures. Their governance set principles of justice, leadership, and administration that influenced later Islamic dynasties. The challenges they faced, maintaining unity, preserving the Quran, and expanding Islam's reach, were met with resilience and strategic vision. The history of this era serves as a reminder of both the strength and the fragility of human leadership and the importance of maintaining justice and unity in any growing civilization. The story of what happened after the Prophet's passing is not just a historical account, but a lesson for the present. It highlights the importance of strong leadership, the dangers of division, and the resilience of faith. Through unity and adherence to justice, Islam not only survived the death of its prophet, but thrived, shaping the course of world history in ways still felt today. The events that followed the prophet's passing shaped the world in ways we still see today. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the rich history of Islam. Until next time, may peace and blessings be with you.